That is the Mississippi River. Begins down here, goes all the way up to what, Minnesota? At least that's what I read in The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. Anyway, welcome back. Speaking of Huck Finn, let's bring on the SEC's bad boy, Michael Brad. Michael, it's been too long. How have you been?
Hey, doing great, Paul, except, I thought this was the SEC network. All I see on your program here is Texas. So this must be the Longhorn network I'm joining.
Well, I don't know I don't know if you know. See, you married Oklahoma this year. I saw you in Norman on July 1st. I mean, you were all in on the Sooners, 9 wins, who knows what. And, of course, it didn't end well. But you should have jumped on the Texas bandwagon like me.
Well, I think I figured it out, Paul. We've had a team from Texas in the SEC for over a decade, and all they do is disappoint. And, of course, I'm talking about Texas 8-4. And here I thought Texas would be of the similar branch where they get all this hype, all this expectation, and they fall flat on their face. But I've learned there is a good football program out of the state of Texas, and it's out of Austin. And I think there's an outstanding chance Texas wins it all here in a couple weeks.
That's interesting. I remember it wasn't all that long ago when A&M was one game away from Atlanta, and not a great finish for Mike Elko, was it?
No, I think he took Lane Kiffin's advice and said, hey, we don't want to play in the SEC championship, didn't want to play in the college football playoff, didn't want to play in the Las Vegas Bowl. I mean, what a disaster of a final month for Texas A&M and Coach Elko. And, I mean, I think they were the biggest disappointment in the entire conference because after Halloween, I mean, they looked to be a lock for the playoff, and they were in firm control of the SEC. And, I mean, they're nowhere close to the top now.
So I realize it's early, and we'll get to the games moving forward in just a minute, but some treetop observations from what you've seen up until now. It's been a mixed bag.
Yeah, we are over a week removed from Tennessee getting destroyed by Ohio State. I think Ohio State's still scoring on Tennessee. So, I mean, that was outright pathetic. And even I mean, there's just been one disappointment after the other, and I'm starting to believe some of these people that think maybe the SEC's not the top dog that it once was, but, you know, we could spin it the other way, and I still think there's an outstanding shot we get an all-SEC national championship. I think that might be the only way the conference can redeem itself.
Yeah, because Michael, I realize you read all this stuff. We had Ari Wasserman on a week ago, and he wrote some piece blaming me for famine around the world, and also mentioned that my just quick reaction to SMU getting blown out and Indiana losing badly. This was all before the Tennessee debacle, but Tennessee had nothing to do with the argument that you and I, many have had, that the SEC should have been treated better. And then we just had Nicole Ara back on, and I'm sensing, and I know you are too, that things don't go very well over the next couple of days. They're going to be beating their chest even more. What are you going to be able to say about that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, Tennessee did, without a doubt. I mean, it could have been worse. What did they lose by, 30 points? I mean, they could have lost by 50, but that was playing at Ohio State. I don't think there's a team in the field, not even Oregon, probably would have beaten that Ohio State team at Ohio State on a Saturday night. So, again, I think a lot's being made of Tennessee getting destroyed, but I think even more laughable is just the seedings. And I mean, how do we get in a world where Penn State's got an easier road than Oregon, which Oregon hasn't lost a game and won their conference? I mean, it's all nonsensical, and they really need to get that fixed. And as soon as they do, I think the SEC will have a better showing. And I still think South Carolina was the team, not Alabama. South Carolina was the team that got robbed. I think they would still be alive in this playoff had they made it.
So let me get your thoughts, because we haven't talked to you since Tennessee, and I mean, there's no scraping anything away from that other than a complete disaster. How are you feeling right now about your alma mater? Your alma mater, of course.
Yeah, I'm not claiming him after that performance, Paul, but I've never seen a fan base quite go from they took over Ohio Stadium. We're gonna advance to the next round. To Paul, I was buying tickets to the Rose Bowl and all this, and that was all put in the trash in about 7 minutes into that football game. So I it's wild that I thought making the playoff was a passing grade now in the SEC, because there's teams like Ole Miss and Missouri who hyped it up for 6 months that they were going to get there and couldn't do it. I thought making the playoff was going to be enough to appease fans, but apparently that's not the case anymore either. I mean, half the Tennessee fan base wants half the coaching staff and half the players dismissed from Tennessee. So I don't even know if making the playoff is good enough for a good season by some standards.
Michael Bratton with us. Michael, why don't we take a short break here? We got started a little bit late. A number of other questions I want to ask you as we continue right here. We are live in New Orleans. That is the Superdome as the sun is beginning to set in the west. Been a great day here so far, and we are talking to Michael Bratton. Wish he was hanging out in the restaurant, because man, you'd find something to eat here, Michael. Let me turn the page to tomorrow. Alabama. Did you know that Alabama is in the let me get this right, the ReliaQuest Bowl against 6-6 Michigan?
Yeah, I heard the Cheez-It Bowl passed. So apparently there are bowls outside of the college football playoff, and Alabama fans, now that they're in the Kayla DeBoer era, they're well aware that there are bowl games outside of the college football playoff. I think they're going to have to get used to a lot of these Birmingham Bowls and Outback Bowls, if that's still a thing. They might be in the Pop-Tart Bowl next year.
The ReliaQuest Bowl, I think, is the old Outback Bowl. They just don't give you bloomin' onions when you're a sports writer covering the game.
Well, that makes sense. Right? DeBoer, he deserves one. That's about what he deserves for the coaching job he did this year.
I mean, Brad, you're tough on DeBoer. You're tough on Lane Kiffin. Who are you? Who else are you? I mean, I haven't kept up with you that well over Christmas, but I mean, what happened to the holiday spirit?
Well, I don't have any holiday spirit, Paul, for these teams that, their aim is to make the college football playoff, and they're nowhere to be seen, and our conference is being mocked nationally, as you alluded to. I mean, these are the teams that are supposed to be there and defending the honor of the conference, yet they're in the ReliaQuest Bowl. I mean, I just can't get over that.
Hey, by the way, I want to get back to the real issue, because I think this is a narrative that is growing. I was asked on a show this morning, hey, what's up with the SEC? And I think that's because of Tennessee. I don't think Oklahoma losing on a 2-point conversion or any of these other situations are really that critical. But how much is at stake, whether it's in Alabama, Michigan? You have Ole Miss playing, you have South Carolina playing, and obviously the two games on Wednesday. Do you think it really this narrative continues to grow, or do you think I'm just imagining things because I'm getting all the questions like you are?
No, honestly, Paul, I don't think it's as bad as it's made out to seem. But yes, the SEC has struck out in some of these marquee games. The Tennessee game we keep referencing, Texas A&M losing to a really average Southern Cal team. I mean, that was awful. But if you look at the bowl record, I mean, I'm pretty sure the SEC's got an outstanding overall record, and I think that'll improve tomorrow during these New Year's Eve days and games. And quite frankly, I think it's going to improve in the college football playoff. So I think the only thing that could really prove us wrong, Paul, is if Texas somehow loses as a 2-touchdown favorite against Arizona State. I think that would be doomed for the SEC and all its haters. And I think they've got the articles pre-written, ready to post if that were to happen.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you mentioned that A&M game, because the idea that Lincoln Riley, who's been a disaster at Southern Cal, is 2-0 in the SEC. And by the way, he's not 2-0 against Kentucky and Vanderbilt. I mean, he's 2-0 against LSU and A&M, two schools that were considered, at least at one time this year, to be among the SEC elite. He couldn't beat anyone in the Big Ten.
Well, yeah, I believe Lincoln Riley's got as many SEC wins as Oklahoma, which is pretty devastating considering Oklahoma's had 8 shots at it. Meanwhile, he had 2. But, man, it's tough. It is, and particularly that one, because like you said, that LSU, that was Monday night, I believe, nationally showcase, and then this A&M one up 24-7, and you still find a way to blow that game. Those are the ones people remember. They don't remember, no offense to Cheez-It Bowl or ReliaQuest Bowl, but they remember these playoff games. They recall the SEC losing. They don't recall all the SEC wins, fair or not.
Well, anyway, we'll know pretty soon, but they've been laying in wait for a long time. Michigan winning last year. Obviously, I think too. I know you mentioned Texas, but I think Georgia's also got a lot on the line because Georgia is the so-called new Alabama in the SEC, and I think that loss to Notre Dame of all schools would hurt badly.
Maybe, Paul, but again, I think not that Georgia needs excuses or anything, but I think that you could turn around and say their star quarterback that won them a couple of games this season wasn't there. So. Again, I still think Georgia will beat Notre Dame, but if they don't, I think it'll be blamed on them not having their starting quarterback, and that likely means Gunnar Stockton, who I think will have a good game against Notre Dame. It means he probably struggled in that match.
But you have heard all those things about Gunnar Stockton that we've heard from all of our guests, that they play hard for him. He drives a Ford truck. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, he's the antithesis of what Carson Beck has been, at least publicly, with all the NIL and the model girlfriend and all that. But all that matters is if you win the game. And if not, none of that, all that will be forgotten in a heartbeat, Paul.
My New Year's is complete, having talked to Michael Bratton on the next to the last day. Michael, Happy New Year. We'll talk to you in the new year. Can't wait to reconvene. Michael Bratton from That SEC podcast.